Okay, hey, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today at RIG Podcast. Unfortunately, this is going to be I don't want to say somber, but it's definitely, well, there's no easy way to put this. This last week is we experienced something in America that I've yet to experience in my lifetime. Though no, I take that back. I think Ronald Reagan was attempted whenever I was a child, but I don't know. I was maybe like 2 years old or something. There was an attempt on his life, but yeah, that's a very fortunate series of events that have been going on really for the last 10 years, and I do want to talk today about well, we got Electro something, whatever his name is, Dubshine. He's going to be joining us. But I'm a Christian, and I would like to give my perspective as a Christian to what I've been seeing going on for the last. It's really been about 20 years. 20 years since I was in college. Of just the level of political rhetoric on both sides of the aisle. Be very clear about that. In situations like this, both sides want to immediately point to the other and start to hurl blame and condemnation. But very, very rarely do you have people who have the introspection to, say that I've been a part of the problem, and not even more so than that to say that I want to be a part of the solution. So we do want to talk a little bit about that today. But Dub is joining us now. Wait, what is Electro Live? Is that the name?
Yeah, Electro Live is the channel, and Dubshine is my DJ name. But you can call me Scott or whatever you want to call me.
And
Thank you, brother.
if you don't care about music quality, like if that's not relevant to you, you have low standards. You can check him out here at dubstime.bootcamp.com. But you are I will not be held liable for any kind of brain damages I might inflict upon you. But
It
anyway,
hurts
okay.
feelings.
What was that?
It hurts feelings.
Okay. Yeah, anyway, thank you for joining. Thank you for joining today. But well, let's just. I only have about an hour because it is. You just got off work. It's that time
Yeah.
differences work. You just got off work, and I am a day ahead of you. So it is my Friday here. So I do want to get right into this, but I do want to reason a little bit by analogy before that, but because I'm a little bit ahead of you, and as far as time wise, look wise, mental wise, all that, I'm ahead of you. But no, but really, all joking aside, we we are at different stages. People are at different stages, and I wouldn't. I think the 20-year-old version of me is a completely different person, and I think a 60-year-old version of me would be completely different as well. So if you just kind of just reason through that by no fault of my own, you're a few years older than me, but I'm ahead of you time wise right now because we are in South Korea. But we're still on the same journey together, or we're still on the same planet together. So I think people too quickly want to project their experiences, their thoughts onto other people politically, and that can start to cause some serious problems. But um, I do want to start off with that. But can you give me your thoughts about what transpired over this last week?
Yeah, man. It's just really weird, first of all. Like, even depending on which perspective you might take on it, it's weird either way. Like, it looks like the options, either this was just some crazy kid that got a hold of his daddy's gun and went off, and somehow the Secret Service was inept. They couldn't find the guy in time, and people had to lose their life behind it. Always a sad thing, regardless of the situation around it, the context. Or, the other option is that this whole thing was a big setup and all of that kind of stuff, which honestly, that wouldn't surprise me either in today's climate. Or we could be living in the freaking matrix. It's like,
Yeah,
if you
that's
think
option
about
three.
it, yeah, option three, because it's kind of like I saw something on Joe Rogan was agreeing with what I was already thinking about, that this whole thing just seems so bizarre. Like, you've got this bumbling president, you know, who's people, both the Democrats and the Republicans feel like he's probably not going to run because he's too inept. And then you've got this ultra machismo sort of through his situation for so many years. And then you have this assassination attempt with all the, like I said, the inept Secret Service. They're fumbling around trying to put their gun in their holster. Couldn't find the shooter in time. They didn't even dive on the president until, you know, seconds after the whole thing was over. Which, if you look at, like, the Reagan assassination, which was like the last time we had something like this happen, dude, they were like all on him. Like, they just jumped him like
Yeah,
immediately, was down and
hold
all
on.
of
I
this
do got.
stuff.
I do want to push back on that because I have heard this
Uh,
floated around as well. But the thing is, with the Reagan assassination, the guy was at close range, so it's a totally different
Oh,
situation. These guys were off
right, true.
stage, so those guys are around him. So I don't think that's a good comparison to make. Now, don't get
Right,
me
right,
wrong.
right.
There's a lot of other inconsistencies, and something is afoot. But the truth is, though, the reality is that we probably will not know the answer to that specifically for about another 50 years, because like these
Yeah,
these
yeah.
files are certainly going to get sealed. I mean, Martin Luther King's files with the CIA, the FBI haven't even been like revealed, you know, revealed yet. So
Mhm,
yeah,
mhm.
if you think we're going to know the answers in the next week or two, you are I want some of your ayahuasca that you're smoking, because that's just not going to happen. No sleuths on internet are going to get this thing figured out, Now, can we
Mhm.
say this is just bizarre? Yeah, I cannot for the life of me conceivably imagine that dude, that 20-year-old dude, evading all these people, cuz I mean, I just listening right now, it was apparently he was on the radar for 3 hours prior to. So
Yeah.
something is afoot. I mean, there's no other way to get around. Something is afoot. But do I think Dubstep or Dubshine is gonna, or anyone else on Twitter is gonna be able to figure that out? I highly doubt it, man. It's exactly what happened.
I mean, yeah, I doubt it too, but it just everybody's going to draw their own conclusion based on their own presuppositions. Some
Hmm.
people are just diehard liberal progressives that are going to feel like the conservative right set this whole thing up in order to, make a big splash and focus in on Trump becoming president. I don't think that was necessary. I think he's going to be our next president regardless, just based on what's going on right now. I might be wrong, and I'm not wishing necessarily that that's the case. I'm just saying it just seems like the ball is in his court with Biden's last performance on the debate. Then, the conservative people will think this was set up by the Biden administration to get him out of the way. But I don't know what sense that really makes either in the long in the scheme of things when you look at it. Like, I don't know. Then
You know,
again, I mean, there's motive. You could say that there's at least motive there, but we don't have evidence. That's the whole problem. We don't really have evidence for stuff like that.
I think
Not yet.
it's plausible on either side to imagine scenarios in which the other side is responsible. I could
Mhm.
genuinely see both sides getting equally more entrenched in their beliefs about what's going on.
Mhm.
The one thing that I can't wrap my mind around is Christians who are alleging that this was divine intervention. It's like, okay, so let me get this straight, because I think this is where some critical thinking can come in, that Christians I find very, very, very much lacking in amongst my Christian brethren. But okay, let's just assume for a second that this was divine intervention. There's lots of stuff
Mhm.
God doesn't do. There's children who are being abused, and there's genocides and stuff that's taking place right now. But okay, God, for whatever reason, is more concerned about a billionaire than Palestinian kids or people in Ukraine or whatever. But okay, we'll set that aside for a second. God or maybe he sent an angel, maybe an angel. He didn't personally do this, but he just dispatched an angel to do this. But he somehow deflects, he or she or they, maybe the angel's non gender conforming, whatever their pronouns might be. They swat away the bullet into a father who's there trying to protect his kids. So it's like, okay, if you really wanted to show this is God, and man, you like, I'm gonna really drive this one home. What would have happened is that bullet would have went straight out, did a magical way, he made, he whizzed around everybody, came back and killed that cheater, man. I think even the staunchest atheist would be a Christian at that point, right?
Exactly.
Would you
Exactly. I
agree with
mean,
that?
of course. I mean, the thing is that that whole divine intervention thing, of course, I'm not down with that because that's just
Mm-hmm.
silly. Um,
Right.
now, and I've seen some Christians try to bring quantum physics into it. Like they try to say, well, with quantum tunneling, and when you've got infinite amount of universes, maybe in most of those universes, Trump was shot, but in ours, God decided he should live in this reality in order to fulfill his purpose, and he's using quantum mechanics to. But it's like it's such a convoluted argument that's just see, this is the links, this is the mental gymnastics people can go through in order to fulfill their beliefs, make it make sense. It's like, well, why
That's
didn't the
just our luck.
quantum
This is the one time that God intervenes is in this point. That's just,
right?
we're screwed then.
Well, the big picture is, Trump's the great savior. He's the chosen one. So God had to make special plans to make sure that he lives and fulfills his purpose on earth. So they come up with all kinds of crap. None of this is in the Bible, by the way. All of
Of
this is
course.
just fantasy, and I just don't pay attention to ridiculous shit like that. Excuse me, stuff like that, because it's just a stretch of my credulity. You
No,
know.
that it's I think Christians lose so much credibility and honestly self-respect. I mean, you lose self-respect whenever that's the depths that you're going through. Like, there's a lot of other shit God could be doing right now on the planet, but he's really concerned about election 2024 in America. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
He's really concerned about America. So I
his
mean, yeah,
favorite
I I,
country.
I I think you got to jump through some pretty obscene loops, honestly, if you ask my opinion. But I see. I do want to get on to something else right now. Okay, so let's.
Oh,
Sorry.
you got a
Uh,
separate.
I have to add something right now. You're gonna see it right now. You're gonna see what I'm gonna add. It's pretty funny. But I just do want to say something that this this has come about in some way or another by the rhetoric that's been going down for the last. It's hit a fever pitch over the last 10 years that both sides have just been completely demonizing the other side. Like, I just want to give some context to what I'm talking about. There's been actual Republicans who have worn shirts that said, "I'll take a Russian over a Democrat," and so it, coming from people who are allegedly the group of you know patriots and whatever, I can't think of there's something that's more unpatriotic than saying you would pick belligerent foreign powers over people from your own country. Like, that seems about as unpatriotic as you can get. So there's just the rhetoric that's coming. Of course, both sides will always point to what's the rule where, like, as long as the conversation goes on, like, there's more likely to be compared to Hitler.
Hmm.
Have you heard that?
Oh yeah, of course.
What's that called? There's some
Yeah, well,
there's
it's like well, it's a false equivalent. that they're
Hmm.
making would be the technical term for it, maybe, or one of them.
It's
But
called
yeah,
like
they,
Goodwin's
they
law.
said that about Obama too. Like the right would say that about Obama. Like Obama was Hitler. Remember that?
Hmm.
And and so the left will say Trump is Hitler, right? And and a lot of it has to do with some the way he talks, which is kind of belligerent and over the edge, and it really triggers people. People get triggered by certain ways that you talk, and so they will conflate that with you being a very evil person when it's all just words. But then they'll say, well, this comes from the highest power in the world, the president of the United States. When he says what he says, like in
Goodwin's law.
Charlottesville, he's just supporting Nazis. When if you
Well,
take that in context, a lot of people can argue that he was really talking about people who wanted the statue removed. That there's good sides, good people on both sides of the issue of the statue removal. But then people will, or the media will say, well, he was really referring to the people that were out there chanting, "The Jews will not replace us." That there's good on both
y-
sides. I don't know if that's really what he was referring to, but people will
yeah.
always twist it.
I will say this. I actually agree with you 100%, but I do want to say, though, it is interesting to see how the people who he was referring to actually took that, because they took that as a sign of like, well, he didn't come out flat out and condemn us. So it's like basically supporting this about them. And then whenever he was asked to condemn them, he said, stand back and stand down, which means
Yeah, 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 yeah.
stop doing this right now, but stop doing this right now, but we might need you to do it again later. So it was pretty disturbing, honestly, seeing the whole thing go down the way that it has. But I do want to take a step back, because I mentioned what's been going down for the last 20 years. And I do want to say there's this iconic video of Reagan, speaking of Reagan, where I may be wrong, but I believe he's debating Mondale. I cannot for the life of me remember who he's debating. But they talked about his age too, ironically, about whether or not he was too old. And he looks over to the guy who he's debating and he says, I promise not to talk about my opponent's youth and inexperience in this debate. And like, man, everyone just burst up laughing. Even and the moderator and the guy who was debating, which I believe was Mondo. I may be wrong, but uh, they just start laughing. They realize, and he's sitting there with a smile on his face, and the decorum though that you saw back in the debates in the '90s is completely different than what's going on today. If you take a look at um, even with Obama, they had some decent debates.
Hmm.
He had some respectful debates with McCain, and McCain was such a classy guy, because even whenever McCain lost, and his audience were starting to boo him, he was like, you could see him like he was giving his concession. He's like, calm down, like, we're a country together. If you win or if you lose, you have to be an American first, and you have to put your country above your own personal feelings and stuff like that. And so, level of political talking to where you're demonizing the other side. And if you just look at like, and I think Trump started one of the worst ones in the Republican primary, and whenever he won, and was 2016, he was talking about people's looks. He was talking about people's wives. At one
Yep.
point, he was talking about the size of his Johnson. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff that was going down. I mean, just stuff that's really unbecoming of someone who's going to be leading the country. So I think, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, you got to consider also the culture we live in. The only reason stuff like that has a chance of even taking flight
Hmm.
and being successful is because that's what I hate to say it, that's what a lot of dumb Americans want to see. I mean,
Hmm.
they think that the more fire and fireworks you can bring to the debate stage with those insults and making get laughs here and there, that makes you the best debater in the world. You know, he's a great debater. He actually shut what's
Zingers.
his name down when he when he called his wife a dog, a dirty dog or whatever he called what's his name's wife. They thought that was hilarious, and so he won. So it has nothing to do with substance. It has nothing to do with, solutions. And Americans love that crap. They love entertainment. It's a big reality show out here. They love to see it. That's what they're all about. And you'll see that it changes though. They'll start changing the goalposts when you get on social media. Then it'll be all about, Trump had the best policies over. He didn't know about it that much, but we all know he's. And then and the other thing that I struggle with too, with people, is their understanding of what liberalism and conservatism really mean, as opposed to what party people, Democrats and Republicans, do. These people are only in it for their own power. Like this Democrat Monday, the senator, they got in trouble for fraud and corruption, selling gold to Qatar and all these other countries, right? They point out Trump, conservatives are all about corruption. It's not about small government traditional values, about really big government, and it's all about corruption, because they'll look at someone like Trump and say he's the face of the conservative party, therefore conservatism means whatever Trump's doing. Well, that's just like saying that liberalism is whatever the senator did on Monday got caught for, the corruption and stuff like that. So you have to kind of like separate out the ideals of liberalism and conservatism and not conflate that with the bad actors out there. They're all bad actors.
That's an interesting point. And I'm going to be thinking about that point that you said today all day long about that. Just basically, it's really what I would call a feedback loop. And there's been some talk about like an Overton window about like the things that's acceptable in talk. By the way, Blaster, can you please let me know what you mean by this? I'm not really sure what I get. I think I saw this a little bit too late. But okay, so as a Christian, I have to say this, because as a Christian, where my allegiance, my solidarity lies is first and foremost with being Christian, second with being a human, third, I would say being a citizen of the globe, and fourth is like my Americanism, because first of all, I don't even live in America, and I am going to talk to you something about living in South Korea. So I lack the kind of patriotism that that most people probably living in America have. That being said, I do consider myself to be extremely patriotic, but it's probably for completely and utterly different reasons than most people do. Living overseas and traveling to the countries that I've been to North Korea, I've been to Africa, I've been to Haiti. So I've seen some kind of the way that the government treats some of its people, and just having a clear mind about this, I have to say that I couldn't have asked to live, to been born in another country than America. Like, there was a time in which I was a snobby little stuck up, pretentious youngster, and I wanted to give up my passport. But the more that I've thought about the kind of sacrifices people have had to make for our country, and the kind of beacon of light that it has been to many other countries, it's made me very patriotic. That being said, I do know America has done some pretty messed up stuff. So I don't try to justify everything that we've done. So I do want to say this though, because so Blaster Master, I do want to show you this here, because I did just recently get killed in a K-drama, if you could see that. And yeah, I had like the blood pack and all. I arrived to set and they say, good news, bad news. What do you want first? And I'm like, well, I guess I'll take the bad news, get it out of the way. They're like, okay, you're going to die. And I was like, wow, how do you top that? They're like, no, you're going to get killed. And then I was like, man, I'm like, let's do it. That sounds like a great story to me. But anyway, so the reason why I'm talking about that is because the drama that I'm on is actually called Trigger. And the context of this K drama is that these guns abruptly wind up in South Korea, okay? And then people start getting shot and killed. And then it turns into a whole K drama about them trying to uncover this. And this is where I live, that like people getting shot and killed is so foreign to them. It's so foreign to people, to subjecting to their citizens to school shootings and et cetera, et cetera. It's like it's literally just fantasy to them. It's something that they're going to see. But I do uh, yeah, I actually thought the same exact thing, but I am bold. They did put like a tattoo, they put some tattoos on me, on my head and stuff. It was pretty fun. It was a really fun experience, I have to say that.
What was
Though I
that?
did have to
Was it
fall
a
down. I
film?
had to fall on the pavement multiple, like 10 times I had to fall down. Next day I was all sore, but anyways, interesting story. But so I do want to start here. Like, what are your thoughts on gun control? I want to get your opinion on that.
Oh, my opinion.
Yeah.
Um, so there's a couple ways to talk about it. So obviously, common sense. If we took away all guns in America and wiped it clean, there would be no gun violence. That's just logic, right? So if the goal is you don't want people getting shot by guns, take away all the guns, period. But then that's a little bit extreme, people will say, because you can't, there's more guns out here than people. So
Hmm.
you're never going to
Hmm.
confiscate all the guns. In fact, the only people at that point that would have the guns are the criminals.
Right.
And so then you're left, in a situation where criminals are overpowering the innocent people.
Hmm.
And then you have this moral argument that, when regulate guns to that point, to the point where it's really hard to get a gun, you're kind of like punishing the good people because of a
Hmm.
handful of bad people. And then
Hmm.
they always focus on like the high powered rifles and things of that nature when most of the murders are done with handguns. Statistically, that's an argument they'll make. So why don't they crack down on handguns? Why are they always cracking down on the high powered weapons? But on the other hand, high powered weapons are used in, like, even in my town, they had a what was that, a Target? No, not Target, but a Home Depot shooting where the guy came in who's an active shooter. Then there was, the president was almost shot by an AR-15.
Hmm.
I think that's the only time that the liberals are glad someone had an AR-15. No, I'm just kidding. But a
That's
lot of people,
it's
you know
probably
what?
true, but bad.
Yeah, it's terrible. And I said that as a joke, but actually, I found out a lot of people actually feel that way, which is sad.
Yeah, I do have to say, I I am very much against Trump's agenda, but there's just no room for that's bullshit, man. Whoever is supporting that, I mean, you should really be ashamed of yourself.
Yeah,
As long as we have a democracy, um, because you take someone like Benito Mussolini or like Ceausescu, you had these guys who were caught murdered by civilians or the military eventually at some point saw these guys had to go, but um, those guys are doing some extremely horrendous stuff. And
right.
Trump has said some really bad stuff. But I mean, he's not doing anything even close to comparing him to Hitler or
Deserving that,
Mussolini or
yeah.
Ceausescu. I mean, that's just inappropriate.
But you asked me what is my stand on the
Right.
gun control. I mean, look, I live in Florida. It's open carry here. It's stand your ground here. So if I don't have a gun, which I do have a gun, I would be kind of like vulnerable, in a sense.
Right. Right.
Especially if I'm not going to the shooting range and training with it and trying to get good at it. It's just unfortunate that we have to have guns, period. But that's just the reality. That's our culture. That's, you don't go in, if I hang out here without a gun, I may not have a way to defend myself.
Right.
I got
Right.
some people rolled up on me about 2 years ago, and
Really.
yeah, they rolled up on me, followed me. There's a bunch of kids, there a bunch of little thug nation teenagers.
Knuckleheads.
They saw me in the car and they started flipping me off and whatever, and I just kind of tried to ignore them, and then they followed me and tried to scare me, and then they followed me into my, residence, and I got out of my car and went to my house, and they were all out there like, "What you gonna do? Shoot you up?" Blah blah blah, and I just pulled my gun out, and that killed the whole situation, stopped the whole situation.
Damn. They
Last
probably knew that
year,
you were. They probably took one look at you and knew that you're an atheist and like, we got to get rid of this guy,
we
man.
got to get rid of that guy. Well, hell yeah. Then last year, I went to a club, and I left the club to go meet somebody in the parking lot, and while I was waiting for him, I just went to my car, and I bought this really nice drop top BMW, right? So it was like it
Damn.
was new, it was brand new last year, and I went out there just to look at the car, get something out of my car, my glove compartment, and two guys like little punks were out there, and they were like, "Hey man, get away from that dude's car." Like, and I just ignored them, and they said, "Hey man, we told you get out of his car, man." So I pulled my gun out and put it in my pants, because I knew some problems was coming. And I went to go walk back into the club, and they confronted me. And then I had my gun, and I just kind of just put it by my side, and they were like, "Oh shit." So they left me alone, and I put the gun back in my pants and went in the club. And after that, it was all good. They didn't mess with me. They knew I had a firearm on me. So it's like
You're packing heat.
I was packing, and I mean, it's not like something anybody would like to have to live through. Like, you don't want to have to
See,
do that. You don't want to behave that way. But it's like,
right,
dude, if I didn't have that gun, who knows what could have happened? They could
right.
have jumped me and killed
S-
me.
See, I do have to say that we do have to recognize that there are weaker members of society who need to defend themselves, like that. With me, you got righteousness and justice right here.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I don't need all that fancy stuff. But I do understand there are people like you who need that. But no, I took that's a crazy story, man. Honestly, yeah, I'm not under the illusion that getting rid of all the guns in America would be plausible or even a good thing, because whenever you have as you said, over 300 million people, or 300 million guns, if you say there's more than people,
Yeah,
that's not realistic, And then
yeah.
also the other plus side of that is, if you ever saw the movie Casablanca, which is my favorite all-time movie, but there's this pretty funny scene where one of the Nazi guys is talking to Rick, and he's talking about the Nazis invading America, and Rick's like, he goes, there's certain sides of Brooklyn I wouldn't recommend invading if I were you, but but that's the reality, Like, if Russia or someone wants to start some beef, good luck, good luck trying to get through LA and junk. What I mean? You got all these gangs and stuff. I mean, that would be like the one time that it could. It's a deterrent. There's no other way to say it, that it is a deterrent. I do want to say this to Blastmaster, Master Portion now. I do want to say something, that this may be one of the only things that I have looked to as far as Trump's agenda, because that I have been supportive of, because I would say 98% of everything that he says I disagree with. But um, I do have to say, though, that living a foreigner in another country. In fact, my visa is actually getting ready to expire in like a week. So there's a lot of not political, but there's a lot of legal jumbo that I have to go through. The last time it took me like 3 days to do it, and I've had to spend thousands and thousands of dollars. And sometimes you actually have to leave the country. So if your time is expired. So I've been fined. I've been given an exit order. It is a lot of, I mean, it's a lot of stuff to have to go through to try to be in line with the country's rules. But I mean, South Korea just would not tolerate millions and millions and millions of people coming here illegally. I mean, first of all, you couldn't even do it because of the DMZ. I mean, that's where the people would have to be crossing.
Hmm.
So it's a bit of a different situation. They've built a wall here in South Korea, and it's worked pretty well. But yeah, you just can't go into people's countries and just say fuck your laws and everything. And you know, that's just try to do that. Try to do that in another country. Just try to go
Right.
walk in to another country and see how that plays out for you. Like that's there's no room for that in a civilized, just societies and world. Now, should it be easier for people to migrate? Absolutely. I wish I did not have to. And I'm married to a Korean. I'm married to a Korean with a child here, and I still have to jump through these ridiculous loops that they. I mean, literally at the end of this month, like in 2 weeks, it's expiring again, so I got to apply for that. But yeah, we have to have you have to have laws and order in society. You can't just have people, especially when we're right next to a place that have so many places, so many organizations like CJNG and Los Zetas, and I mean, there's some, as Trump said, there's some bad hombres down south. So you have to at least have some kind of idea what's going on. But
Yeah.
I do want to transition to something else. Well, I do want to give my thoughts on the guns real quick, because I do think that you just need some common sense laws. You know, like you people should have to apply for licenses and permits in the same way you would, driving a car. You should have to take competency tests every couple of years, um, and vision tests, all that stuff, mental background. So I think it should be harder, and we should have a better idea of people who are having the guns. But it's I think either extreme is probably a bad thing. Everyone just having access to whatever at any time, or not having access to anything at any time, it's both of those are bad. In my
And I
opinion.
think most people feel that way. That's why, one of the strong points going for Trump in the eyes of most Americans is that he's harder on immigration than Biden is. I mean, Obama was harder on immigration than both of them put
Right.
together, I think. I think that
Right.
but they have this narrative that he's the mean, bad old conservative guy, Trump, when really Obama deported more illegals than Trump did in his term. And so, just be consistent, but also really try to understand something. I really break things down to some common primary first order principles. You wouldn't let just anybody just walk in your house
Right.
uninvited. It's kind of the same thing. And people will always try to make it more complicated than that. Say, well, this is a country and blah, 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 blah. But really, the principle is, if you don't, there's a way to, like you were just saying, there's a way to do things, and it's always been like that. So I don't understand why that's a problem. It's just that we have this culture of, some Americans feel like we should be the savior of the world. Like we should feel sorry for the world and let them in and look at the crying tears on the children, and they tug at your heartstrings. But a lot of the argument could be, well, this political party wants to see voters. They want they want a voter base. So if they can appeal to them with this heartstring thing, then those illegals will one day be voting for them. Even some
Hmm.
politicians, people argue that they're trying to make it legal for illegal people to vote too. You
Hmm.
know, and
That
so
is crazy.
that's crazy, right? But other
Yeah,
people
I
say, no,
do.
you're crazy. You're crazy
I
for not going along with that because you're not feeling sorry for people.
I do have to say that I mean, me, I'm pretty moderate myself. I would say I lean left probably 55, 45%. So I definitely have more liberal leanings. And I am someone who believes that the governments in the world should be working together to force people to spend at least a year out of their life overseas. Like it should be mandatory, in my opinion, because for me personally, getting to interact with people from all walks of life and seeing different people's way of thinking has really tempered me, and it's really moderated some of my positions that I once had. And it just made me a more balanced and well rounded person. So I do think like if we want to be promoting world peace and things like this, like we need to make it easier to travel and to I mean, if I got to run things, we would be doing swapping with countries. Like you're going to send a certain amount of your population live here for a year or two, and then you know, you can go back to your country. But because I think you would see a lot less of the closed-mindedness and the shallowness that you see in a lot of people who are always saying like, "Oh, America is the greatest country in the world," and yet they've never traveled anywhere. You know, I mean, I've been
Hmm.
to dozens and dozens and dozens of countries overseas, and I've got to see there's a lot of people who do things a lot differently and better, flat out better. I mean,
Yep.
and I'll give you two quick examples, but in Greece, like they give you like a 5 minute break right in the middle of a movie. So you're out watching a movie, you know, I'm sure they get to sell a few popcorns and a few sodas there, but right when some action dies down, you know, they don't do it like in the middle of a gunfight, but when things are kind of like, you know, every movie that starts to right in the middle, it starts to like they start to they stall a bit. There's a little bit of filler in every movie. You know, they give you a little break, go have a smoke, maybe go have a beer. You know, it's a lot of countries. South Korea, you can get a beer in the movie theater, which is nice. So yeah, people do things differently in other countries, and you know, especially like I will say this: if you ever got a chance to interact with Muslims, like in their country, in their in their home country, be it like Turkey or uh, for me, I went to Palestine. I got to stay with some Muslims for like a week down there, and people who um, sorry, I'm just looking at this. Uh, I've met people who have gone through like Iran and Afghanistan and stuff, and getting to stay with the people. And you enter into a Muslim's home, you are like you're treated like royalty. So people who are like really anti-Islamic, I think if they got to spend some time inside of a Muslim home, you would say these people are not at all like they're portrayed on TV. So I have got to interact with Muslims all over the world, and I've definitely found them to be some amazingly hospitable and loving people,
Yeah.
much more than a lot of Christians I've met. But so yeah, I think you got to. I think I do believe that you know there has to be law and order, but you shouldn't make it to where it's like ridiculously hard or expensive to travel or to migrate. You know,
Of
South Korea is
course.
dealing with a lot of with the workforce shortage right now, so they're bringing in a lot more people. So I thank God for that. But um, you know, they still it can be a son of a bitch to try to do stuff sometimes here as a foreigner. You know.
Yeah.
Anyway, I do want there is something else I want to talk to you about. What he's talking about, not citizens vote. Yeah, that is a bit of a weird situation, honestly. That is a I'm not sure if that's fear mongering right there, but that's a bit of a weird situation that I think
No,
that
that's
that
the
might
whole
be just
thing.
fear mongering. I think you were
There's
just saying
no
people were saying that, right?
Yeah, there's no politician that's ever going to be for open borders. I'm telling you
Hmm.
right now, like I said, Trump, his strong point is he's strong on immigration. He's or stronger on immigration than Biden in the eyes of most American voters. That's why, he's going to win the election. Number one, that's one of the things that is going to help him win. And politicians know that. No Democrat, no Republican is going to be for open borders. But the people, there's this wave of people, especially on college campuses and universities, you talk to, and I've talked to these people. They want open borders. They want to this feel sorry for the world, stuff like that. Those people do exist, and those people could possibly change the direction if they were ever to overpower the body politic. But right now,
Yeah,
that's just not the case. That's just not the case. Most people are for law and order, like you say, Democrat, Republican, both of them are for, you know, order. They're not for that. But, these extremists, people with these weird views, they will talk about stuff like that.
right. By the way, blast your master. I think this is a problem where you say you can blame the conservatives because the conservatives are going to say you can blame the liberals. Well, I think what I was trying to say at the beginning is that there's blame to go all around, you know, and people who have contributed to the rhetoric that's been going down have to shoulder some of the blame with this, because I do want to say this, that about 10 years ago, I started to see some of the most vitriolic language I have ever seen online. I mean, it was bad before that, but I just saw a fever pitch right around the time that Trump was announcing that he was going to be running. Okay. So, and Dub has got to see this on a personal level, because you were in a group with one of my very close, someone who's like a brother to me. And um, he's very pro Trump, pro right wing, pro Republican, conservative, and he's tried to, for the last 10 years, to try to get me to support and endorse their agenda. And I've told him that I do not vote. I am not politically active, because I think that when people say, the government needs to do X, Y, and Z, like, it takes away from the responsibility that is, as Christians, that we should be doing. And so, like, there's a lot of things I think, if the church was less focused on politics and donating to political campaigns and used a lot of those finances and time, we could be impacting the world a lot more. Like, what do they say? Trump made like over $100 million, like after some ridiculously large amount of money um, after a couple events. But one of the events was the event that he raised a lot of money. Oh yeah, after he got convicted. That's right. After he got convicted, um, he raised a ridiculous amount of money in like 24 hours or like a week or so. I don't know. I can't remember. I'm only somewhat aware of what's going on in America. Actually, I'm much more concerned about what's going on here. And yesterday, you wouldn't believe the kind of flooding that took place here in South Korea, man. We are getting all these alerts on our phone, and where I work, the entire basement flooded and came up like about that high inside of the place, man. So there's other things that take priority like that. My life here in South Korea. So I'm not too much aware, but I did hear that he raised a lot of money, and I think that's probably a lot of that was coming from Christians. So I would much rather use my time and energy actually helping people out. Um, I recently got scammed by someone from Nigeria, and actually I called him on the phone, and I heard in the background that there was a baby crying, and so I said, "Look, dude, I know what you're doing, man. I know what kind of scam you're going on, but I'm going to send you this money anyway, just to help you out with your family." And it just caused him to break and kind of like admit everything that was going on there in Nigeria. And so I did wind up telling him, like, I'll support you to help get up a little small business to, so you don't have to do this anymore. So I did help him out financially and stuff. But there's a lot of times I'll do stuff like that, and it can come at the expense of my own family. So I know sometimes I'm not the most responsible like that. So yes, you got to help, but at the same time, you do have to take care of your own citizens and family first. Like that has to be a priority. So I'm all for helping out, refugees and orphans and stuff like that, because I don't just talk about it, I actually do it. But at the same time, your family's got to be priority. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. That's your top priority all the time. So there has to be some kind of balance there.
Well,
But
the Christian, I think the spirit of the Gospels is to give at the expense of yourself. Like Jesus said, if someone asks you for, the shirt off your back, give them also your freaking shoes or sandals or whatever. Like, go beyond, like that's sort of the message. And
But
a
Jesus
lot of
didn't
people
have no
take that.
babies, man.
He
Jesus
didn't have no babies.
babies.
And also too, I think that a lot of people take that stuff literal. I think he was just trying to make a point, or not he. I don't even know if he said all that. I think the Bible writer said that about Jesus, but that's a whole nother topic. But supposedly,
Hold on, Blaster, what were you doing in South Korea? I'm just curious right now. What are we doing here? If you're serving, Dub, Dub, yeah, don't go there, Dub. Not this time. This is not the venue for that one, Dub.
We can do
Um,
apologetics next time.
right. But, but, but Dub, actually, yeah, but I mean, I do have to say that Jesus didn't have no baby. So all I was saying is that you got to strike a balance, you know. For
Yeah.
me, I think Jesus was able to do what he was able to do because he didn't have a wife and he didn't have a baby to worry about. Like, I can imagine Jesus coming home and be like, "How long are you gonna be out with those guys every day, man? Um, seriously, come back home." So I can imagine Jesus accomplishing a lot less being married or having a baby, waking him up at 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm not sure he would have been able to accomplish what he did. But anyway, I could be wrong. But I do want to transition over to something. I only have about 20 minutes left. But one of the last things I do want to talk about is because we talked a little bit about the incompetence and with the whatever was going on. I said we don't know the full picture, but I want to talk to you about the whole DEI and initiatives and whether or not that might have played any role. Yeah, because I do have to say this, man. Um, I'm writing a book right now about racism, and I talk in there about um, there was this case where these four black police officers tracked down and killed. They beat another black guy to death, and I think his name was Nichols or something. I cannot remember for the life of me the name. I have it written down in the book. But if you were watching that go down and you didn't know the context of what was happening, or like had you saw that on Reno 911, Reno 911, you would have thought it was funny because these guys were just so incompetent in trying to arrest this guy. Like one of them actually winds up spraying the other guy in the face. He winds up spraying one of the police
Yeah, I saw
officers.
that. I saw that.
And
Yeah.
it's like if you would have put some like like the dun 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 dun, dun like in the music in the
Mhm.
background. I mean, you shouldn't. No one should even be thinking about that because someone lost his life in the situation. And I'm not trying
Mhm.
to underplay this, but it was so ridiculous what went down that in another context you would have found it funny. You know,
Yeah.
you would have found it funny, not what happened to the guy, but just their complete lack of training and lack of like four guys couldn't take down one guy initially. At least he's somehow able to evade him, and they wind up sprayed each other. Like that's something you would see in a Jim Carrey movie or something. And some of the stuff that I saw go down with with Trump being quote unquote protected, it's if you didn't have any other kind of context, you would have thought some of this stuff was funny because I
It's
mean,
fake.
there, yeah, it just looks it's like beyond parody as what I've
Yeah.
heard. Um, this is a totally this is a total joke. This is a total joke. I don't want you to think I was taking too seriously what I was saying there. Um, yeah, that was a total joke. Um, but someone's calling.
Yeah, not anymore.
So I want to give your thoughts on that and about like, well, let's just start off first. The whole DI thing. What are your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, it's either really grossly incompetent or it was just faked or we're in the matrix. That's those are the
That's
three options. Because
a
it
real
just looked so
possibility.
scripted. It just looked like part of the movie. Like it's like if you were going to shoot a movie, it's like a typical Denzel Washington movie, the president, he tries or Batman movie. They try to shoot the president, the guy misses by a hair, everybody jumps to the ground, Secret Service is running around discombobulated. It's like a movie. Like in real life, you would think you'd be on your best. All your training should kick in at that moment to where you're serious and you're like, exactly what to do. Not all, I mean, I don't know. Or it could just be incompetence, which that's kind of sad, but that's kind of
Right.
weird too. Like, why would you hire a bunch of incompetent secure? I mean, what kind of I don't know what kind of training do they go through? What kind of vetting does the Trump's people have for finding the right security people to protect him? but it just seems really weird because I think the shooter pulled a gun and pointed it on some law enforcement people at one point, was reported. That's what I heard. I don't know. Then I heard, and I don't know if this is true, that people in the crowd said they pointed out the shooter.
Right,
I
right.
kind of, I
Well,
kind
no,
of
no.
don't really believe that. I don't think that's
There's
true.
video of that. That's not
No,
even. That's
that
not up
can't.
for
I
debate.
don't know.
There's video. No,
You
there's
got
video of it. Hey, look, there's someone up there. You can see the videos of that, dude. That's
what?
not that,
Are you
dude.
serious?
I've seen many videos of people. This guy was on the radar for 3 hours, dude, and he was up on the roof for like 20 minutes. Yes, this is. You
Then
can
how? Then
see
that
it.
makes it even more weird.
It's worse.
Like
It's worse. Yeah,
it's worse than that. Then I don't even know what to say. Then like it's
but
just I don't get it. I just don't understand. Like and you know the other thing I was thinking is maybe that perimeter was not part of their perimeter. Maybe it was the law enforcement was to look at certain things outside of their perimeter. Maybe the Secret Service was only supposed to handle up to that building. But that kind of doesn't make sense either because it's like, why would they just ignore it then? Like it's still
there's.
long enough to kill the president. I mean, you would think, but I don't know. I don't know. Maybe that's I'm grabbing at straws. I don't know.
I just do have to say that we're not going to know that. As I said, we're not going to know that until, well, I was going to say another 50 years. I'll be 92, and you won't be anything because you'll be dead at that point. Thank God you'll
Yeah.
be dead at that point. But you will not no longer be around in 50 years when those classified documents finally get released, and even at that point they'll probably be redacted. But first of all, Morena, thank you very much for your input. I really appreciate this. This was a kind of a joke that I was saying because I don't think that I could serve, and I don't think I could really be a minister without having some experience about being a father or a husband. Because if someone comes to me for advice about something and I'm just a single dude, like I cannot for the life of me imagine that I would be much help. Having raised a daughter and been through divorce and got reunited with my wife, I think I've learned a lot through that. So yeah, don't take everything I'm saying on here too literally. There's kind of, I am joking a little bit. I definitely don't want dubstep to die in another 50 years. But I do want to say this. So yeah, there's certainly a lot of anomalies, but I do just have to say, take that out of the equation for a second. This may sound somewhat sexist, but I do not believe in any sense of the word women should be serving in roles where there is potential to have violence inflicted upon them, such as in the military, um, active forces, armed force. I should clarify that. There's lots and lots and lots of other jobs to do, but I do not believe that women should be in combat roles or in police situations or police officers or guarding the president. And I know that sounds kind of sexist, but I think it has more to do with wanting to protect the women. Um, if you were to think back when humans were evolving 6,000 years ago, because we know the Earth is only 6,000 years, but prior around that time, now hundreds of thousands of years ago, that was a joke too. But when there's a lion approaching your tribe late at night, you didn't have fortified cities or whatever, and something's come to like attack your tribe, your group, you wouldn't think it wouldn't even cross your mind to send out the young boys or the elderly or the women. It should be the men who are taking up arms and saying we're going to be the ones putting ourselves at risk to go confront this danger right here. And to me, maybe I'm just a little bit too old fashioned that it it is related to the competency level, I would say, because women shouldn't be and have to be put in situations where they're taking people's lives or they're needing to rough people up. But you could clearly see from that video that that woman was probably about a foot shorter than Trump, and she should not have been in that situation. I mean, it's inhumane to me. It's misogynistic to put women in that situation.
Well, I would say like this. It depends on the woman. I think that there's a lot of women out here that'll kick your butt, man. Um, there's a lot of women out here that live for stuff like that, and they probably have very masculine sort of a very masculine spirit about them, And you know, and there's cultures like in the Indian culture or Native American culture. Traditionally, their women could be warriors, and um, they could have, you know, there's people that have two spirits, so to speak. Um, I know in Kenya, where my you know, my wife comes from, you know, there was a long period of time in their history where it was you know, women ran everything, and they were the warriors, and they held it down for centuries. So it's I don't know, it just depends, you know, like I can't really say it's a blanket thing. But in this case, I understand what you're saying though. Like there's in evolution, you know, women are evolved and
Evolution.
adapted. Yeah, evolution, because
I'm
it's not
joking. I'm
real.
joking.
It's not real, you know.
I'm an evolutionist. That was a joke.
I'm kind of like a Kent Hovind guy myself. You know, once you show me a dog can come from non-dogs, then I'll be
Or show me a
convinced.
dog whose mother was a rock, and then you'll
Yeah.
convince me.
So you're really trying to tell me that we came from bananas, really? But anyways, but yeah,
Oh,
you know, it
hold on.
just
I just want
depends.
to say that. Hold on 1 second. I do want to say that Ken Ham dude, he was showing how the banana. God, he said that the banana was proof that there was a God because the banana fits right into your hand, you know. And then later on, they showed how they basically bred the banana. Like, there's been a lot of human engineering that's gone behind things like strawberries and you know, other kinds of berries. It's between crossbreeding and stuff like that, or controlling, you know, controlling basically controlling how you know, you plant certain crops in certain areas and stuff like that. So yeah, it's pretty ridiculous when you hear some of the you know, the arguments that I'm sorry, that was just I shouldn't have gone there
Evolution
with
is
that
a
joke.
is evolution is a religion. And it's fine to have your religion, just don't teach it in the public schools. That's my thing.
But okay, hold on. Okay, so Dub, okay. So because I know people would probably okay, let me back up a little bit because I know someone would probably hear that and think that's a little bit sexist or misogynistic. Ironically, would think that's misogynistic. But the truth is that just to be fair and even about this, I absolutely think that that because of that fact though, like men should not be presidents. You know, like I cannot imagine a woman doing what Adolf Hitler or Pol Pot did, you know, because of the
Uh,
fact that they're more nurturing, because that's been inbred with them with rearing children. They're going to value children, especially like you just imagine a woman sending off a being that's incubated inside of her for 9 months, that's grown inside of her. She's not going to want to send that child off to go either potentially die or kill the creations of other people. So
but
I
that
think
could be a
women,
weakness.
what?
That could be a weakness if you think about it, because she should be more of a feel sorry for type of person. And you know, it's because of feeling sorry for people is the reason we've got all these illegal immigrants in here in the first place, right?
Well, okay. So
I'm just kidding.
we could go down this rabbit hole a lot more because there's a lot of other things at play that
Yeah.
create the ability and that create the need for there to be illegal immigrants because you know there's push pull elements that wind up happening as far as why people migrate, you know. So that's a whole nother issue. I don't want to go down that
Yeah.
rabbit hole because I could really challenge you on that one right there and really bang this one out. All I'm saying is that my statements related to women have to do with the fact that I'm a father of a 6-year-old daughter. One, two, I fully recognize that there's a lot of women who would beat my ass. So that's not even up for debate as well. And I also recognize that if I had been up there guarding the president, I would be I would be under the stage, man. I would have dived under that stage and been curled up like a like a baby under that stage, man. I mean, that's just the reality that I recognize the limits of um I recognize the limits of myself, you know. And so
Hmm.
I think there's some women out there who uh, could kill someone and maybe go home and sleep at night. sleep like a baby. I absolutely know that's true. You know, I've seen I've seen I've seen some of this. Well, at least on videos, women killing people and like not having any problem with it. You know, so I definitely know that's possible to happen. But I mean,
But it's yeah,
um,
it's not the rule.
yeah, it's not the rule of thumb. But I would just the other side of that is if you think that that's being like degrading to women, it's like look. I also, on the other hand, don't believe that men should be leading countries anymore. Like we've had several thousand years to get it right, and we just saw the last bloodiest century, uh, of history. And I just, for the life of me, can't imagine Eva Braun pulling off what if he would have gotten married prior to that, um, his whole life. Had she been the leader, I can't imagine her ordering the final solution the way that Hitler did. So it's I don't
Yep.
think because of the nurturing side of them that I just cannot imagine that being ingrained into women and then them turning around and doing a Rwanda or having a women version of Idi Amin. I just cannot see that. But
I think that women have strengths and men have their own strength. Like men are more aggressive by nature. They're more, testosterone, the chemicals. That's what makes the men how they are in general. And then you've got women that are more maternal and, as you said, but marriages that work really well are because men and women that communicate really well, right? And then a woman can bring her strength to the table to see things the man doesn't, and can bring that softness to the
right,
situation, whereas a man can bring in the
right,
aggressiveness when it needs to be
and
there.
the
So
logical.
if yeah, the logical, all of that. And so when you think about running a country, maybe it shouldn't be in the maybe the executive branch should be made up of different people, with different strengths, or he should
uh,
have a cabinet that has people that can bring those. But when or someone like Trump or the president has the power to just shut people up and do his own thing anyways, that can be a problem. It's like you said, men have screwed up the world throughout history by being overly aggressive and warlike and
mhm.
all of that stuff. And they don't listen to anybody, they're stubborn.
I do have to say though, I thought about this as a new political system, and I hope that this next election cycle, this gets adopted. But the president gets the most votes, he becomes a president. The opposition side who loses, he automatically becomes the vice president. Then they rock, paper, scissors to fill in the other remaining cabinets. You win, you beat the other person, or head toss, toss a coin. Whoever wins, they get to appoint the next position, and then or they just rotate. They could just go back and forth. They rotate it. I think having things on either extreme is a bit too much. But by the way, Blaster, I do want to say something. This is an example right here of you reading into things like you're approaching this issue with such a one-sided um, thought already with your preconceived notions about what I'm actually saying. I didn't say anything about women not serving or not hunting or not or just gathering stuff. You've completely read that into that. I'm just saying, if all things considered, if you have a situation where you have a battle going on, let's just say you did even send the women to go fight in the past. Who's exactly going to take care of the kids, or who's going to breastfeed your kid when you're out fighting some battle? Like where's the kid going to get his milk from? So I'm just talking about rules. I'm not saying that women just sat around and picked berries all day. I mean, you're just reading.
And see,
Maybe you're
this is a
associating me with.
perfect example. This is an
Yeah,
example, I think, of where the dialogue in this country breaks
right.
down. Because let's say there's another a conservative person were to read that, they could say that, oh, this is the problem with the woke community. They think women can do everything a man can do. And so they're unrealistic. They're ignoring the science. They're ignoring the biology, right?
Hmm.
And they're not really, he wasn't really saying that. But someone could misconstrue it because they're too busy straw manning of the other side, just like
Right.
he may misunderstood what you said and ended up straw manning what you said. And so everybody's arguing points that no one's really making.
Right.
if that makes sense, because
Yeah.
that's why every time you get into a conversation about these sort of things, it's always a correction. Oh, nobody's really saying, you know, that we want open borders. Nobody's really saying, like, I never said they did, but
Hmm.
you just misconstrued what I said because
Right. Right. Right.
you've got all this baggage about what
Hmm.
other people think, that you project that crap onto your interlocutor, right? And so
No,
I think
this
that
is why I
that's a
really
big issue, you know.
this is why I really love talking to you, man, because um I can have conversations with people who I disagree with as long as they have valid lines of reasoning and they're reaching their conclusions with some very thought out and philosophically grounded arguments. And um, even if I were to go down the rabbit hole, that issue you mentioned earlier, and even if we didn't agree with it, I mean, even if we couldn't find common ground in that issue, I know that you would have reached your conclusion through not in haste and not through irrational means. I may not agree with it, but that doesn't mean that. First of all, I never would degrade you on a person, except when I'm now I'm hitting puberty right now. I would never degrade you on a personal level. You know, I really like
Mm.
you, except for joking. I might joke. That's the caveat there. I might roast you a little bit every now and again, but we could have that discussion. And I really always
For
genuinely appreciate.
example, someone thinks that you, and I don't think you believe this, but someone has stated to me that you believe that Israel has a right to commit genocide against uh, Palestinians. I know you don't
Like
think that.
me particularly.
You personally, yeah, that you think that Israel has a right to wipe out all of Palestine.
Does that person know that I spent a week inside of Palestine in a mosque, like learning
I
from
don't know,
Muslims?
but what that really tells me is that for some reason, if you have some kind of opinion that's a little bit outside of the notion of the other person, it's so easy to strawman you, because in their
To
mind,
pigeonhole,
in their
pigeonhole.
logical mind, they're thinking that, well, if you're for any sort of retaliation, for example, I'm not saying this because I have no background on this conversation, but I'm just imagining, based on my own personal experience, that if you say anything outside of what your interlocutor believes, that means that you've gone to the extreme. They
Oh,
read it into what you're saying.
I think I know exactly. Now that I put that together, I think I know exactly who you're talking about. Okay. Then I will just. I do have to close off right now. I do have to say that a lot of, as a father, I'm absolutely horrified with a lot of stuff that I've seen Israel do. Um, there's genocide, or is horrible. I don't think they're doing a genocide, but I think anyone who says that they're doing a genocide, you're lumping them in the same category as Rwanda, and that is just clearly not happening. They could have done some stuff. I would have done things a lot differently. But then again, if I was running Israel, I don't think the Gazans would have been in the situations that they were in the first place. So it is a complicated situation, though. I've spent time there personally, and I in the homes. I'm actually one of the organizations that RHE podcast supports is a group of reformed terrorists who work alongside the families of slain civilians of Palestinians, or sorry, of Jews, and they're called Combatants for Peace. And I actually got to go into the home of a former reformed terrorist. So people can change, and people can see the errors of their ways. And but I just said, I mean, you could see what I had to say, just so we could clear the air on this. You could go back and see what I had to say this, because I did a stream on this right before, or right after it happened. And I do have to say that, like, at the end of the day, if you put a cat in a corner and you come to, you know, and you're kicking it or whatever, at some point, a non-violent cat is going to become violent. It's as simple as that. So you put people in situations. In fact, I might do something violent if you threaten my daughter. You know, and I not might. I will do something violent when it comes to protecting my daughter. So there's some gray area between there. I think, God, I think that humans should be doing a lot better job of helping each other and loving each other than we're doing right now.
Just the bottom
That's the main
line.
thing, you know.
That's the thing. And we always come on this podcast in order to be a positive message rather than a divisive message. And so, like, you know, I just feel like the best thing that I can do is just talk about what others that I've heard in my experience or in what I've read, what the arguments are from both sides, and then kind of on the podcast, and kind of discuss it to say, where can we and talk, because that's really the bottom line. How can we communicate about these things without straw manning each other, without condemning each other? Because it seems to me that we live in like a society now. The social thing is to hate on each other, to throw. It's like we live like what Bill Maher says is like a not a bad girl syndrome. Like,
Right.
how mean girl
Mean
syndrome.
Girls.
Mean Girls. It's like everybody just wants to throw each other under the bus and misconstrue what each other says. And and it doesn't have to be just political. It could be about religion. I've been spending most of my week debating with other atheists about stuff, and they just all just gang up on me and just are not really trying to hear what I'm trying to say.
Hmm.
They just say, "Oh, you're just in with the theist, or you're in with that." If I talk to theists, "Oh, you're just a closed-minded atheist," or whatever. It's like, just
Right.
because you have a little nuance, because you bring another idea to the table to consider,
Well,
all of a sudden you're on the other side, you're on the other team.
well, you know exactly this is true with me.
Yep.
To my conservative cousin, he calls me a liberal flag wave flag waver. But to conservative people people who are more liberal, I'm like a right winger, which I
Right.
mean, you would really have to stretch to the moon to describe me as a right winger because I lean more left, but I think either side, either parties are full of shit, honestly. There's no
Thank
if,
you.
ands, or buts that.
Thank you.
I've told you about some of my issues with politicians, but I'm a middle of the road guy. Like, I agree with positions on either side. Both sides make sense on some things, and both sides are inconsistent and illogical on some positions. I you'll be hard pressed to find someone who's more in favor of people traveling and migrating to other countries than myself. But on the flip side of that, I also have to go through the red tape and the expenses of what that actually means to be an expatriate overseas. You know what I mean? So it's like, if I were to say I was anti-immigration, that would be the biggest hypocrite on the planet. You know what I mean? But at the same time, it's like I believe in order and trying to do things in a way that's going to be safe for everyone. I want everyone to be protected, and I don't want people to be ran out of their homes, or schools to be overcrowded, or hospitals to be flooded with people that they can't take care of because there's just too many people who are not documented, and the census it's skewed the census or whatever. So I think we can reasonably talk about these situations, but
But we
any
can't,
last thoughts?
because
I do have to go right now.
yeah, last thought is that, I just blame our society rather than any particular politician or anybody. I really see the root of the problem in our materialistic society. We're full of ego, we're full of team tribalism, and we're all about that money. We're all about, you know, at the
Dollar
expense
dollar
of
bills, yo.
other people. Dollar at the expense of
Hey,
even your family. That's just the
I
problem.
think I think it was E40 who says, if it don't make dollars, it don't make sense.
Don't make
So
sense, right? Exactly. Most people feel that way, and they feel like, if you have to do what you got to do to get ahead, that's why we have a political machine based on that. Um, People won't. Politicians are driven by money and power, man. That's what it all boils down to. And this is historic. This isn't anything new. This is just how it is. And it's just more exasperated in our country because all our media, all our songs talk about it. You know, all we talk about is getting money, dehumanizing other people like women and our ops or whatever. And it's like that's all that's on the mind of people subconsciously. So is it any surprise that we elect these idiots in office that do the things
Right,
they
right.
do? Is it really
We
any
need a change of
surprise?
consciousness.
Yeah, the whole overall consciousness needs to change, and it all starts with communicating with each other and giving each other the benefit of the doubt that maybe we're not, you know, their enemy. You know, maybe we're just trying to figure out solutions. You know, but all we can do is talk about it and bring it to light and set a good example, I guess.
I agree with you to this point. I mean, Marina, if you like to have a little bit of a more nuanced discussion about this, I really, uh, you're welcome to come on anytime. But my issue from the top of the hour when mentioning the thing about the time difference is just that we might be at different stages of understanding an issue, or you never know what ignorance that people have on an issue. And people, I know that's a pejorative that people use ignorance, but the reality is we're 99% ignorant about everything in the universe. So we're all
Yeah.
dealing with various stages of ignorance. And so you don't know the reason why someone might hold the position that they're holding. And I think we got to be in an environment where we can safely, I hate the idea of like a safe space, but we really do need these kind of things to flush out ideas. To
But
I've heard it saying like teased out. We got to tease out. We have to try to untangle some of these issues that are more complicated, and thinking that one side only has right points on it and the other side has invalid points on it is, I mean, you're setting yourself up for failure. I mean,
yeah, look, what a person like Marina doesn't understand apparently is that the other side thinks the exact same thing
yeah, yeah,
about her.
right,
They
right,
think the same thing about the other side
right,
with just as much confidence and certainty about it.
right, right,
So what are you going to do? Just call each other ignorant all day? And how?
right.
Where is that going to get us? Like we've got to at some point we've got to sit down and talk it out and
I know.
really discuss things.
And I think I've heard it expressed a couple of ways really good. One of them was through this podcast, the atheist up in Canada. He said that you really have to try to hold the other person's thought into your mind. And
Hmm.
we're so easily to get their idea and dismiss it, and to say, "Oh, you must have come to this conclusion by faulty or irrational means, or ignorance, or misinformation, whatever." But you have to genuinely understand that this person is genuinely holding on to um, to this position because this is the information that they're privy to at the time. Now they might change. I've changed my ideas on a lot of uh, topics over the years. Living overseas has really changed my perspective about that. But I have also come to emphatically see that I'm wrong about some stuff. Some of it was just stuff that I learned that was not true. You find out stuff that you learned as a kid through, um, miseducation, that you just believe something that just was not true. Um, Example, I was told by my mom that German people were genetically evil. Like there was just something wrong with German people for committing the Holocaust. And it wasn't until I grew up and actually got to interact with German people. I just had a German guy staying with me for 40 days, actually. And you know this, I mentioned it the other day. But these people are awesome people, man. An
Yeah.
asshole got power, who wasn't even German himself, 100 years ago. And, it's that's just the reality of what it is that people manipulated. Yeah, why don't we come back? Why don't you come back for an actual conversation? I would love to have it with you.
Yeah.
Where we could,
See, it's
yeah,
easy
just
to
not
say, just throw out blanket statements.
right.
Like that's the kind of mentality people have. It's like they
Hmm.
just have these sort of blanket statements going through their mind that drives their opinions instead of actually sitting down and maybe
Hmm.
going through. it maybe even taking the other person's position, at least temporarily. Can you, for 30 seconds or a minute, pretend like you're a Republican and come up with the best arguments for being a Republican you can? Just try to really focus on that. That would actually teach you something. It would maybe help you understand where the other person's coming from. And then, and it could be that they're ignorant. It could be that the Republicans are all wrong for this stuff. It could be. But at least try to figure out what it is they're actually saying or what it is they're actually arguing for.
Well, I recently just purchased this little nifty Oculus set for a VR camp that I'm going to be doing here, and I do have to say that it really gives you appreciation of the working together of your right and left eyes. I think they compensate for it, so you don't have the, when you're looking to the Oculus set, you don't have the same kind of blind spot with your nose that you would actually whenever you're just looking, through your eyes. And I think if anyone to do that, if you're to close either one of your eyes, it's going to be very limiting to you. And on the same perspective, if you had a plane that only had one wing, it's going to go down. And so I think both sides have strengths and weaknesses. And I think rather than trashing each other for the differences, we could try to, the left likes to talk so much about celebrating diversity, but they don't like to celebrate the diversity whenever it comes to political opinion. So, there's something that can be learned from every side. I mean, I cannot tell you how much I've learned from atheists and Muslims and Buddhists by being in the world. Hindus, it's helped me strengthen my Christianity. Seeing the level of commitment that they have to their faith and their ideas about God and about how they live it out. So anyway, I do have to go because I'm already late at this point. I'll be late about 20 minutes. But Dub, again, thank you for coming. I do want to plug this again. If you have gone deaf in one or both of your ears and you don't really care about quality and you don't mind having a seizure mid song,
you won't be disappointed.
You're gonna be yeah, but no, seriously, thanks again. I'll roast Dub anytime he's on, but no, have tons and tons of respect for this guy. So that being said, I want to leave you this outro and do all that stuff you're supposed to do. Subscribe and comment.
Peace and love, everybody. We love you.
Peace and love.